Have you ever wondered why, despite your best intentions, despite the burning desire to change, you find yourself circling the same drain of mediocrity year after year? You set the goal, you visualize the summit, and for a brief moment, the air tastes like victory. But then, inevitably, the fog rolls in. The alarm clock rings, and a heavy hand presses you back into the sheets. The difficult conversation is avoided. The project is delayed. You tell yourself it is the world that opposes you, the economy is bad, the timing is wrong, your energy is low. But deep down, in the quiet, terrifying hours of the night, you know the truth. The obstruction is not a wall built by others, it is a cage constructed by your own hands. Most people live their entire lives engaged in a futile war against external circumstances. They believe that if they could just change their environment, their luck, or their peers, the golden path would reveal itself. This is the great illusion of the ego. The ego is a master storyteller, and its favorite genre is the tragedy of the victim. It convinces you that you are a besieged fortress, surrounded by enemies. But Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who mapped the dark continents of the human soul, offered a piercing counter-narrative. He suggested that the world you experience is merely a reflection of your inner psychic state. Projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face, he wrote. This means that the enemy you are fighting is not out there. He is standing in your mirror, staring back with eyes that know all your secrets. This internal adversary is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow consists of everything you have refused to be, everything you have repressed, ignored, or denied. It is the repository of your primitive impulses, your aggression, your selfishness, but also, and this is crucial, your unlived potential. When you refuse to integrate the shadow, when you pretend to be a harmless, nice, compliant citizen, the shadow does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes a guerrilla fighter in the basement of your mind, sabotaging your conscious efforts. This is why you procrastinate. Procrastination is not laziness, it is a conflict between the conscious wish to succeed and the unconscious drive to fail, to stay safe, to remain a child. Consider the archetype of the pure eternus, the eternal child. This is the dominant spirit of the modern age. The pure lives in a provisional life. He is always preparing to live, but never actually living. He dreams of the great novel he will write, the business he will start, the body he will build, but he recoils from the suffering required to manifest these things in reality. He is allergic to the mundane, the boring, the difficult. He wants the glory of the ascent without the pain of the climb. And so, when the initial excitement of a new venture fades and the grinding reality of discipline sets in, the pure within you pulls the ripcord. He sabotages the effort so he can return to the womb of potentiality, or he can remain a genius in theory rather than a failure in practice. This internal sabotage feels like a foreign force. You say, I don't know why I did that. But you do know. It was the part of you that fears death less than it fears growing up. It is the part of you that would rather rot in the comfort of the known than burn in the fire of transformation. You are not fighting the world, you are fighting the gravitational pull of your own mediocrity. The neuroscience of this is brutal and simple. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and seek safety. It views the unknown, even a positive unknown, like success, as a threat. When you try to change, your amygdala screams danger. The resistance you feel, that visceral wall of I don't want to, is your biology trying to keep you alive in a world that no longer exists. But you are not an animal merely trying to survive, you are a conscious being trying to transcend. To look in the mirror and see the enemy is the most painful moment in a human life. It requires a total stripping away of illusions. You must stop blaming your parents for your neuroses. You must stop blaming society for your lack of opportunities. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned, it is the act of an ill-instructed man to blame others for his own bad condition, it is the act of one who has begun to be instructed to lay the blame on himself, and of one whose instruction is completed, neither to blame another nor himself. But before you can reach that final stage of liberation, you must pass through the valley of responsibility. You must accept that the chaos in your life is a printout of the chaos in your mind. The disorder on your desk, the weakness in your body, the emptiness in your bank account, these are not accidents. They are the physical manifestations of a spirit that has not yet learned to command itself. You gaze into the glass and you see a good man. You see someone who is polite, someone who follows the rules, someone who avoids conflict. You tell yourself that this agreeableness is a virtue, a sign of moral superiority. But the unconscious knows better. It knows that often, what you call morality is simply cowardice dressed in Sunday clothes. Carl Jung warned that a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. If you are harmless, if you are incapable of aggression, you are not virtuous, you are merely weak. A rabbit is not virtuous because it does not eat the wolf, it is simply a victim waiting for the slaughter. To be truly good, you must have the capacity for monstrosity and the discipline to keep it sheathed. You must find the barbarian within, the warrior who is willing to burn the world down to protect what matters, and you must integrate him. Until you do this, the face in the mirror remains a mask. This mask is heavy. It requires an immense amount of psychic energy to maintain. Think of the exhaustion you feel after a day of social performance, of nodding when you wanted to scream, of agreeing when you wanted to object. That exhaustion is the tax you pay for denying your shadow. The energy you spend holding the door shut on your own darkness is energy stolen from your creation. It is why you have no drive left for your art, your body, or your business. You are fighting a civil war, and a house divided against itself cannot stand. The shadow, denied its place at the table, will not starve. It will feed on your vitality. It will manifest as a low-level depression, a gray film over your eyes that makes the world look dull and pointless. This is the revenge of the unlived life. And it gets darker. Because you refuse to acknowledge the capacity for malevolence within yourself, you become obsessed with it in others. You project your own repressed desire for power, for status, for dominance onto the people around you. You look at the successful man, the man who has conquered his sector, who walks with the arrogance of competence, and you feel a flash of white-hot resentment. You call him greedy. You call him lucky. You find a moral flaw in his character to dismiss his achievement. But this resentment is a confession. It is your shadow screaming that you want that power, you want that status, but you are too afraid to pay the price for it. This is the concept of the golden shadow. We do not only repress our darkness, we repress our light. We repress our greatness because greatness is dangerous. To be great is to be seen, and to be seen is to be a target. The ego, in its desperate bid for safety, convinces you that it is better to be small and safe than big and exposed. So you decapitate your own potential. You cut down the tall poppies in your own soul before they can bloom. But the mirror does not lie. The hollowness you see in your own eyes is the absence of the hero you killed. Every time you chose comfort over challenge, every time you chose silence over truth, you committed a small suicide. The ancient Stoics understood this internal treachery well. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But the modern man suffers from a lack of reality. He lives in the imagination of who he could be, while his reality rots. The gap between your potential and your reality is the breeding ground for self-loathing. You cannot love yourself because you do not respect yourself. And you do not respect yourself because you know, with agonizing clarity, that you are not trying. You are not operating at the limit of your capacity. You are coasting. And the face in the mirror looks back with the weary disappointment of a father watching a prodigal son waste his inheritance. This is why you feel like an imposter. You feel like a fraud because, in a deep, spiritual sense, you are one. You are presenting a curated version of yourself to the world while hiding the messy, chaotic, hungry reality in the dark. But the path to wholeness, the path to what Jung called individuation, requires that you shatter the mirror. You must stop looking for affirmation and start looking for truth. You must go down into the basement of your psyche and shake hands with the parts of yourself you despise. The aggression, the greed, the ego, these are not demons to be exorcised, they are engines to be harnessed. The drive that makes a criminal can also make a CEO. The fire that burns down a village can also forge the steel of a skyscraper. The alchemy of the soul is not about removing the impurities, it is about transmuting them. To integrate this darkness, to turn the lead of your lethargy into the gold of action, you must change the way you interact with the face in the mirror. You must stop negotiating with it. The time for debate is over. The ego loves to debate, it loves to rationalize why today is not the day, why you are too tired, why the risk is too high. But the soul does not speak in rationalizations. It speaks in commands. You must learn to treat yourself not as a friend to be coddled, but as a subordinate to be commanded. This sounds harsh, perhaps even tyrannical, to the modern ear which has been softened by the gospel of self-care. But true self-care is not a bubble bath, it is a battle plan. It is the rigorous application of order to the chaos of your internal world. When you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, do not look for affirmation. Look for orders. Ask yourself, what would the highest version of myself do in this hour? And then, you must do it. Immediately. Without hesitation. This is the only way to earn the respect of the shadow. The shadow despises weakness. It rebels against a weak master. But when you show strength, when you force your body to move despite the protest of your feelings, the shadow falls in line. It recognizes a sovereign. The aggression that was once turned inward as depression is suddenly turned outward as drive. The monster you were afraid of becomes the guardian of your gates, the engine of your ambition. You are no longer a man trying to be good, you are a dangerous man who has chosen to be disciplined. And that is a force of nature. However, be warned, the old self will not die quietly. The lazy, fearful, comfortable version of you, the one who has been running the show for years, will scream as you try to kill it. It will flood your mind with excuses, with fatigue, with sudden aches and pains. It will dredge up every failure from your past to prove that this new path is hopeless. This is the extinction burst, the final, desperate flare of a dying neural pathway. Do not be fooled. The suffering is not a sign that you are doing something wrong, it is the evidence that you are finally doing something right. It is the friction of re-entry. You are falling out of the orbit of your stagnation and crashing into the reality of your potential. It is supposed to burn. If you turn back now, if you retreat to the safety of the mirror's lie, you will face a fate far worse than the pain of discipline. You will face the corrosive, acid drip of regret. Imagine, for a moment, the true horror of the unlived life. Imagine reaching the end of your days, your body failing, your time run out. You lie there, and the ghost of the person you could have been stands at the foot of your bed. This ghost is not a stranger. It has your face, but it is a face etched with the lines of battles won, of deep wisdom, of fulfilled purpose. It looks at you not with anger, but with a terrible, crushing pity. It says, I was within you the whole time. I was the strength you refused to claim. I was the love you refused to give. I was the masterpiece you refused to paint. That moment is the true hell. It is the realization that the cage was unlocked, the enemy was an illusion, and the only thing stopping you was your own refusal to look in the mirror and tell the truth. Jung wrote, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. You are currently in your own personal hell of stagnation. Use it. Let the disgust you feel for your current state be the fuel that blasts you out of it. Do not numb the pain. Feel it. Let it rot your excuses. Let it burn away the pure eternus who thinks he has forever. You do not have forever. You have now. The enemy in the mirror is waiting for you to make a move. He is betting against you. He thinks you will fold, just like you did last time. He thinks you will choose the dopamine hit over the deep work. He thinks you are a coward. Prove him wrong. Not with words, words are cheap, and your unconscious has stopped listening to your promises long ago. Prove him wrong with action. Violent, relentless, consistent action. Shatter the reflection of the victim and forge the reflection of the victor. The next time you look in that glass, make sure that the eyes staring back at you are the eyes of a man who has conquered his own house. When the dust settles from this internal revolution, when you have finally strangled the excuses and stood firmly on the neck of your own resistance, you will discover a strange and profound silence. The anxiety that has hummed in the background of your life like a broken refrigerator will suddenly cut out. The frantic need for distraction will vanish. This is the silence of alignment. It is the peace that comes when the civil war inside your soul has ended with a decisive victory. You are no longer a house divided. The ego and the shadow, once bitter enemies locked in a stalemate of sabotage and shame, are now allies pulling the chariot of your life in the same direction. This is the state of being that Carl Jung called wholeness. It is not a state of perfection, perfection is a static, dead ideal for the pure eternus. Wholeness is dynamic. It is gritty. It is the acceptance that you are capable of both great good and great evil, and the conscious choice to channel that energy into creation rather than destruction. When you look in the mirror now, you do not see a victim of circumstance. You do not see a nice person hoping for the world to be kind. You see a dangerous, disciplined, integrated human being. You see someone who knows the darkness, who has walked through it, and who carries the fire of the gods in their hands. The world around you has not changed. The economy may still be volatile, the critics may still be loud, and the path ahead may still be steep. But you have changed. And because you have changed, everything is different. The obstacles that once looked like walls now look like steps. The suffering that once terrified you now looks like the raw material for your growth. You realize that the mirror was never reflecting a fixed reality, it was reflecting your attitude towards reality. When you were weak, the mirror showed a hostile world. Now that you are strong, the mirror shows a world of opportunity. You have stopped projecting your shadow onto others, and in doing so, you have withdrawn your energy from the petty dramas of the collective. You no longer care what they think, because they are still asleep, fighting ghosts in their own mirrors, while you are awake. This is the ultimate freedom. It is not the freedom to do whatever you want that is the freedom of the infant. It is the freedom to do what you must. It is the liberation from the tyranny of impulse. You are no longer a slave to the next dopamine hit, the next notification, the next moment of comfort. You are the master of your own house. You have achieved what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but equanimity. You are unshakable because your validation does not come from the reflection in the eyes of others, it comes from the ironclad knowledge that you have kept your promises to yourself. So, shatter the illusion. Stop waiting for the reflection to smile at you first. It never will. You must smile at the reflection with the bared teeth of determination. You must embrace the terrifying responsibility that you are the problem, and therefore, you are the solution. The wait is over. The someday you have been fantasizing about is a lie. There is only this moment, this breath, this choice. Step through the glass. Reclaim the energy you have wasted on fear. Take the hand of the enemy in the mirror and pull him into the light. He is not there to destroy you, he is there to complete you. The time for analysis is finished. The time for action is now. Walk away from the mirror and walk into your life. The battle is hard, the road is long, and the price is high, but the reward is the only thing worth having, the possession of your own soul. The man who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers a city.